Must I say, you all look sharp this morning. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. I know some of you have flown here just to be here for this panel. So you guys should really consider yourselves lucky to have these gentlemen up here. So please help me welcome them again and just say thank you, because we appreciate you and we applaud you. Now, I think to get started, I want to start with Professor. I think a question you probably get a lot of the time, and something that we keep having as a conversation on technology, because you work in AI, is that there's a lot of talk about job displacements due to automation. And do you think many people will be losing their jobs in the future?
What a question. I think that's a question front of mind for many of us. There are two different ways to view it. A lot of people will say, we'll lose some jobs, but we'll most likely create more jobs in the process, because that happened in the previous so-called industrial revolutions. The challenge we have at this stage is that technology is changing so quickly, we're automating so many tasks, that there's a good chance that we will not be able to upskill people quickly enough. And we might get to what some authors call the so-called useless class. If you know Yuval Noah Harari, for instance, in his books. So that's a big societal problem we need to think about. In South Africa, where every wage earner looks after, on average, 8 or 9 other people, getting rid of jobs by automating it is an ethical and a philosophical question. I think we are going to get to a place in the next 20 or 30 years where potentially most people will not be able to work. Can we still do something about it through regulation and the like? We can. There's unfortunately not much happening in our country regarding AI, data, automation kind of regulatory work. I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely.
Not a very exciting way to start the day, I know, but it's honestly what I feel.
Interesting. I hear you saying we might not be able to upskill people at the rate of how technology is developing, and so regulation is really what we have then. How do we regulate technology?
Look, I think, so obviously in our country we have BEE, which is good, but should we also maybe have legislation around automating jobs? You know, should you be forced to only automate, say, 20% of what your workforce does? The challenge we have there is for companies to be globally competitive. They have to embrace this technology, they have to automate. So is it possible, and I'd like to think it is, to on the one hand be a highly competitive, very profitable business and a responsible business looking after your people? It's a bit la-la land, I know. I don't think there are many answers necessary as long as we grapple with this and try and figure it out. What do we do with the future of our children? You know, if you go to university now, there's a good chance by the time you finish in, say, 3 or 4 years that your job's already automated, or that a big part of your training is irrelevant. So I think especially our tertiary education, but also our secondary education across the world, we need to rethink it. You can't just teach kids to use robots and to code. What we are not teaching children is to think. It's a great book. Is Google Making Us Stupid, is the title. Yes, especially if you're already stupid like I am. But and I'll just conclude with this, and a Business Day article about 2 or 3 months ago, I wrote that the so-called, or the humanities in universities, the so-called stepchild of
the what, sorry?
Humanities. So art, religion, philosophy, and so forth. We should teach our children that, coinciding with robotics and coding, because they have to learn to think, because there are things, and I'll talk about it in my talk after this, there are many things that technology can't do, that humans can do. And that's experience, intuition, and so forth. So let's make sure we get our children, the upcoming workforce, if you would, to be able to do the stuff that technology can't do, and to utilize technology for the stuff that only it can do.
That is both amazing and scary. Would you guys not agree? Now, I wanted for us to start by talking about this, but I also wanted you guys to hear what he does, how incredibly amazing the work you're doing. And I wanted you to tell the audience a fun fact about you and what you once did, just so that they can also be mind-boggled as much as I was.
So I play various instruments, but I can't really say it because I'm so rusted that I don't think I can do it anymore. But it's the cello, which is my favorite instrument, the guitar, the piano, but I was a metal drummer, a hard rock metal drummer in a band. To my parents' dismay, now I have an electric set so I can put on my earphones, but I tell you, on Friday afternoons in the place where I grew up, we killed it. And I love classical music, but I'm still quite a metalhead, so you'll see me now and then doing the thing.
Very relevant that we have procurement officials in here, that we need to look at that. And I want to take this conversation to Johan and say, do you think business leaders understand the new breed of smart technologies? Like, how can we also help this, advocate for this change, but also in your experience, how do they typically approach an implementation of this kind of technology?
Because a lot of business leaders, and statistics show about 70 to 80% globally, don't understand this technology at all. Some actually see it quite negatively, fear it. A lot of them see it too positively, where they will, I spoke with a CIO of a large bank here in Sandton 2 weeks ago, and he said his mandate from the board is to AI 80% of his business. I don't even know what that means, okay? And then he said, so how many robots do I need? Now, obviously, AI and robots or robotic process automation is fundamentally different kind of technologies. Most of what I do in my consulting work is educating customers about how to approach this technology. It's the most powerful technology we've ever created. It's still not as powerful as a lot of people think it is. And we're going to get there where it's going to get too powerful, I think. You can't let the technology department drive the initiative somewhere in the dark corners of the business. Because the impact on the whole business, on your staff, on your customers, etc., is immense. It has to be a board-level initiative, and for that, those board members and senior executives have to at least understand some of this. They don't have to become AI engineers or data specialists. But again, when a vendor starts throwing around AI, machine learning, voice recognition, at least have a clue. And just to conclude, I'll explain it. I draw two circles, and the inner circle is what I call the smart technology ecosystem. And that's now where edge computing, cloud, all the stuff we hear about, machine learning, and so forth sits. The outer circle is the reason why these initiatives fail. It's organizational design. What will your organization look like in 5 years if you start implementing smart automation, AI? Do you even have the right kind of people in your organization already? Are they upskillable, if I can put it that way? What about alleviating people's fears around their... Hello. I'll continue with a loud voice. Here's a question. In what industrial revolution are we at the moment in South Africa? Okay. So what was one of the main elements of the second industrial revolution? Production and distribution of electricity. Okay.
Grid.
So we have a lot more to do. Okay. Yeah, so just to conclude.
I feel like you timed that cue. Was that you? You got them to switch off the lights to make your point.
I've got an AI thingy. Yeah. So the point is, the leadership of a business should understand this technology. The ownership of it should sit with them, being responsible about using powerful algorithms for when it comes to their society, their customers, and the like. But a lot more needs to be done for them to understand it in business terms. Don't KPI it from the top. Don't AI your business. Don't go to Silicon Valley and meet with Google and Spotify and come back, because that happened to me. I worked for a 110-year-old bank in Sandton. The CIO went to Silicon Valley. He came back and said, we are now going to Google this whole bank. Okay. And I tell you what, that we had 400 project managers in 1 week, like flicking a switch. They changed all the program or project managers' titles to Scrum Masters. Now, if you understand the difference between those two, because it's from this command and control to real collaborative leadership model, it was a mess. So do it for the right reason and in the right way. It's a lot more common sense than technology, actually.
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Owen Witboy. I'm from Gauteng Provincial Treasury. And I think in the government space, I think we are so used to regulation, used to processes and procedures. And I think many times, I think we ignore the potential that IA could have in the process. I think maybe the question from my side to maybe Prof is to say, when we introduce legislation and we do it so frequently, the challenge always become around implementation. And how could IA be of use to sort of seamlessly, introduce all these regulatory frameworks that we have in government? I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself properly. I'm Owen Witbooi, Gauteng Treasury. I'm the Deputy Director General, responsible for local government finance and Gauteng municipalities in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Owen. Over to you.
Now, thanks for that very, very easy question to answer. Look, this technology can play such a big role in our society, and especially in how government delivers services to its people. It's largely misunderstood by government. If you think business leaders, I said earlier, 70 to 80% misunderstand it. I think government, especially in South Africa, don't understand it. You know, this October, 2 years ago, we had the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution. They produced an incredibly well thought through report. My friend Prof. Talitsi Mawala was heading that up, and they made 8 or 9 recommendations. One was, for instance, the establishment of an AI institute, amongst others. It's 2 years later. Nothing has happened, well, that I'm aware of. And the challenge is it, so the question is it only government's responsibility? And I think the answer is no. I think as civil society, and especially as business, where often the know-how sits, should work closer together. There are some people in government that I collaborate with who are doing world-class work around, for instance, using IoT devices, you know, measuring dam levels, for instance, using satellite imagery, machine learning and the like. But I think to scale it is a big challenge. Now, also this is an article I wrote some weeks back, and it's not a conspiracy theory, and I don't know, but my question is just, and I'd be happy to have that conversation maybe afterwards. The government at the moment is the biggest employer in our country. If not in formal employment, if you think of social grants. And in a way, you then have those people in your grasp to vote for you again. I wonder if the government is incentivized to really create jobs through technology. Because if people don't rely on you for social grants anymore, will they still vote for you? I wonder. But the point is, we have to start utilizing this technology. If we think of the compensation fund, UIF, a lot of people rely on that. It starts with leaders in government understanding this technology and for it not to be political. Whether that's possible, I don't know. And even if that answers your question, I also don't know. But would love to speak afterwards, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bernie van Niekerk here. I'm the editor of Smart Procurement. And I found the comment about, let's AI everything very interesting because, there certainly is some space for humans left, it would appear. But what I would like to ask, probably Prof. Johan and then Carl and maybe the other panelists can chip in. If you had to look at the procurement supply chain environment, what do you see as the most important application for AI and machine learning at this stage? Give us that feedback.
Thank you for another easy question. Yeah, I think in the whole cycle, there's a lot of room for it. We see predictive analytics playing a bigger role these days, even behavioral analytics on your consumer behavior, for instance. So it's not only predicting what might go wrong in the cycle, that could be breakdowns of vehicles, for instance, and so forth. But and predicting, I think, consumer demand is not new. But we are harvesting so much more data now on consumers or on customers. Can we more effectively predict what they will need and by when? And how does that filter into the whole supply chain while still managing risk? I think that's it. How do we get things or services to people quicker? Things that people might not even know they need yet, but we're starting the procurement process on that. That's quite exciting. But what you can do with that data, as long as you do it responsibly, is amazing. So I hope that answers your question, but I think it's about, I think we're moving across businesses from interpreting past data to accurately predicting what will happen in the future.
Yeah.